Welcome back, Twisters, and hello there, hockey fans. My name is Nick, and you're being treated to my season predictions video. So I'm going to go through all the new divisions, give my standings for this upcoming season, share some award winners, and then get into my prediction for the Stanley Cup Champion. And I want to hear your predictions down below in the comments. Let me know your division winners. Let me know your Cup Champion as well. So a couple of house cleaning items before we get started. First of all, my friends, would you like to win this jersey? This is from my personal collection. I have a video showing how you can win this jersey. See the video description down below for a link to that, number one. Number two, when it comes to giving these predictions, I'm not actually going to assign point totals to each team. I'll still do my regular standings 1 through 8 or 1 through 7 for the Canadian division, so just a little note there. And I'm really not an expert, despite the flow, despite the blazer here. This is just my stupid take. So it was also really difficult actually predicting these standings here. So again, feel free to disagree respectfully in the comments below. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of differences of opinions, but do keep this in mind, my friends. In 2018, I said that there would be a team called the St. Louis Blues that would win its first Stanley Cup. So I do have a decent track record there. The season prior, so the 1920 season, I predicted the Flyers before the start of the regular season when a lot of media outlets didn't even have them making the playoffs. So I can guess pretty well once in a while. Anyway, my friends, let's dive into this. I'm going to start with, of course, the North Division, the Canadian division, and I'm going to start with the team on the bottom, and that is the Ottawa Senators. I'm sure most people have the Sens down at this bottom position right here. They made some nice acquisitions in the offseason like Yevgeny Dodonov, and they have some young talent as well like Tim Stützle. However, I don't really think that this team has necessarily the experience needed to make that sort of a push for the playoffs. They also have some defensive question marks there as well. Matt Murray, good to see him in net, but I got them at number 7. This is where it starts to get unpopular, guys, because these divisions, a couple of them are so tight, top to bottom. You know, I could make these predictions 5 times over and have completely different results. So this is not me slapping your team in the face. This is just me giving my best projection. And really, a lot of this is my instinct. So at number 6, this is going to surprise a ton of you. I have the Calgary Flames. This team has just been Jekyll and Hyde the last couple of years, especially when it comes to the postseason. And this team has just let me down in the playoffs. And so I'm just not sure if this team is cohesive enough, especially with an ultra-competitive division. I love having Jacob Markstrom in net. I have a jersey of his from the Canucks, and I wish the team well, but I have to put somebody down here. And so just for inconsistency purposes, they're at number 6, so I'm sure that I already disagree with a lot of you out there. At number 5, and again, I thought that I could have this team even winning the division, but taking some other factors into consideration, I'm thinking they're going to take a bit of a step back, and that's the Canucks. Again, a great top 6. Demko had a fantastic playoffs in his time last year, but his regular season wasn't so good. Braden Holtby, he has to redeem himself as well. I think that their bottom 6 is actually pretty underrated. I like the makeup of this team a lot, but considering how other teams above them have proven me wrong before and a couple moves that have been made in the offseason for these other teams, that's why I've got Vancouver outside of the playoff bubble, and man, I can already see the comments lighting up right now. All right, number 4. Now this team I underestimated a ton last year, and they completely proved me wrong, and that's the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going to predict them to get back into the playoffs. Paul Maurice did a fantastic job with the roster turnover that they had the season prior. Going through some injuries there as well. They've added Paul Stastny. I expect a good season from Patrick Laine as well. You got Neil Pionk kind of under the radar, adding some productivity from the blue line there. As long as Connor Hellebuyck is Connor Hellebuyck of last year and not 2018-19, I think this team can get back in the playoffs, though I do have questions with Brossoit as his backup. At number 3, the most consistent team from the Canadian division, or among the Canadian teams last year, was the Edmonton Oilers. And they were the best in the standings if you look at things. And I don't really see things being too much different. I know that Mike Smith is a year older. Mikko Koskinen was still pretty solid in net for them last year. I like some of these acquisitions like Kyle Turris and Dominic Cahoon as well. This team finally has some good depth scoring, so I think things come together pretty well for the Oilers. I also like Tyson Barrie kind of in replacement of Oscar Klefbom to add some productivity from the blue line. At number 2, this is kind of my sleeper team, my guys. I got Montreal. The Canadiens kind of reminds me of the 2017 Predators. You think of good defensive depth, you think of good depth scoring, and very good goaltending. Jake Allen there to back up Carey Price. I think that's going to work wonders for them in net there. Like the acquisition of Tyler Toffoli. He could even be playing on the third line. You've got Kotkaniemi coming back. I think that he's going to pair pretty well if he plays with Toffoli. That's the last thing I saw from when I looked at the depth charts. You've got Nick Suzuki, Yoel Armia, Philip Deneau. I mean, just great players who don't get talked about enough outside of that market. So I think good things of this team, even if Josh Anderson doesn't put up big numbers like he did 2 seasons ago. I think this team, I don't think they're a lock for the playoffs, but I really like where how they're trending, basically. And number 1, I got the Toronto Maple Leafs, adding some great veteran leadership there. Jumbo Joe Thornton could even play in the top line with Matthews and Marner. That'd be so much fun to watch. You look at TJ Brody coming to the back end there. I expect a Norris caliber season from Morgan Riley. And then, of course, you look at net. Freddie Anderson, when he has a good backup behind him, like Curtis McElhinney, or when he backed up, I guess it was Gibson in Anaheim, he's a fantastic goaltender in those situations. So I like Jack Campbell for a full season with them. And if things don't go so well with him, they can always put in Aaron Dell. He had a nice rebound last season as well. So that's why I've got Toronto there. So that's the North Division. Now we're going to go to the West Division, and we're going to start at the bottom. And they won their last 6 games last season, but when I look at this roster right now, I don't think they're ready to take that next step forward. I've got the Kings. So, of course, Turcotte, he could break into the lineup, and eventually they'll have Byfield there as well, and probably some other prospects. But again, they don't have enough like NHL proven talent to kind of flush out that roster so far. Todd McClellan, he's had success before. I'm not going to count him out to actually help this team get back into contention at some point. I like the Anthony Ciu signing, and I like that Jonathan Quick will be healthy for a season. But to me, the Kings, I still think, just looking at the roster, are the weakest in the division. Number 7, and I almost wanted to put them a little bit higher. I have the Anaheim Ducks. Some good forwards there, and of course, you've got a good top 4 with the likes of Fowler and Manson, and now they've put Shattenkirk in there as well, Hampus Lindholm too. But with Anaheim, again, they're kind of lacking some overall firepower. Raquel has not been quite the same as he was a couple of years ago. Getzlaf is getting a little bit older. Henrique can still add plenty as well, as can Jakob Silfverberg. But still, when I compare them against the other rosters in that division, I think that I can be pretty confident that Anaheim will be outside of the playoff picture. At number 6, and I'm sure a lot of you could still argue that they would contend for a playoff spot, I have the Arizona Coyotes. And they could backstop their way into the postseason, kind of like they did last season. Darcy Kemper, fantastic year. Antti Ranta, very nice rebound as well for him. Wasn't injured as much. But when you look at the Coyotes, in the last 4 seasons, they've produced a 20-goal scorer only 3 times. And I don't see that getting any better for them. They didn't add anybody in the offseason who I think can add some firepower to them. Phil Kessel needs to have a big year. And overall with the Coyotes, if they don't get off to a respectable start and are competitive, then that OEL saga that we saw with him wanting to be traded out, I think that could spiral out of control. You know, this team had some weird things happening in the offseason with regards to the front office more so. So I'm not fully sold on the Coyotes as I have been in the past, actually. At number 5, and kind of the more I see their roster, I'm kind of trending towards seeing them in the final playoff spot. But to make things interesting, I've got the Minnesota Wild at number 5 right here. Some good moves in the offseason, adding in Nick Bonino and Marcus Johansson. And overall, a very good defensive makeup with the likes of captain now, Jared Spurgeon. So I definitely appreciate what they can do on the blue line. Even Ryan Suter is playing well back there. In net, I know they added Talbot, which I kind of was scratching my head about. They got Kakkonen as well. I'm not sure exactly how he's going to do. The sample size is very small, if that. But Alex Stalock was respectable last season as well. But I've got them at number 5. I think that with Dean Evison, he's less experienced with this team. So I think they're going to be very competitive, though. And I'm sure a lot of you have them making the playoffs. So at number 4, and this is my homer pick because this is my favorite team for those of you who don't know, and that's the San Jose Sharks. The reason why I have the Sharks here is because when you compare them against the other 4 teams I've talked about, how many 60-point players would they have over the course of an 82-game season? Maybe 3? With the San Jose Sharks, you've got Evander Kane, who can score 30 goals. You've got Tomas Hertl. You've got Logan Couture, Timo Meier, Erik Karlsson, and Brent Burns right there. And I expect a bit of a bounce back from some of those guys I just mentioned right there. I think that last year just was a total downward spiral for them. They were decimated with injuries at the end of things. And the silver lining when you look at the defensive side of things is Bob Bugner actually helped this team improve defensively. The goaltending numbers got better with Yevgeny Nabokov as the goaltending coach. And I think that that is going to definitely play out this season. And I think that Devin Dubnyk is going to rebound as well. And now he and Jones are competing on a game-by-game basis. That's what the report is right there. So I've got my Sharks bouncing back. Number 3, I've got the St. Louis Blues. I think that they're pretty solid in this position right here. Very good defensively, despite missing Pietrangelo. They add in Torrey Krug to add some productivity there. Big fan of Colton Parayko's as well. And even though they don't have Tarasenko, they still have great players up front, the likes of Jaden Schwartz and Ryan O'Reilly and Braden Shen. I still think this team can get it done. I think that especially when it gets to the playoffs, that style of hockey as well becomes more imposing for other teams. So I got the Blues at number 3 there. Number 2, I've got the Avalanche, and I know that they're kind of 1-2 with the next team I'll talk about. So Colorado, just a monster top line, and right now they can be creative with their lines as well. They don't even have Rantanen and Landeskog paired with McKinnon. I think that Rantanen right now is slotted in with him. They added Brandon Saad there. Good depth scoring all around, and defensively, this team is going to be quite a force to be reckoned with, if not this season, in future seasons for sure. Anchored by Cale Makar, the reigning Calder champion right there. Also, don't count out Ryan Graves. He led the league in plus-minus. And, of course, if you have some healthy goaltending with Grubauer and Francouz, I think that this team certainly contends for that top spot. But for the time being, given the acquisition of Pietrangelo, you look at Alex Martinez, Shea Theodore, and you look at guys like Robin Lehner and Marc-Andre Fleury in net, I've got the Vegas Golden Knights in number 1 at first, winning the division right there. I think that for them, the only thing that I'm sort of scratching my head about, or at least we have to see how it plays out, is the development of Cody Glass, especially if he has to play as high as second-line center. You also look at Alex Tuch. He needs to be healthy and to rediscover that finishing touch right there. If that kind of comes along a little bit over the course of the season, I think Vegas does win this division. So that's the West for me. All right, moving over to the East. So at number 8, and I hate putting them there. I don't like kicking this team when they're down, but I've got the New Jersey Devils at number 8. They just lost Corey Crawford to retirement, so that hurts their play in net a little bit, although Mackenzie Blackwood had a very good season last year, and defensively, I think this team is actually pretty respectable. For me, it's that they're still lacking firepower. Gusev had a pretty good year last year. Jack Hughes, he's got a long way to go still, and they might be missing Nico Hischier for a while as well, so that's why they're at number 8. Number 7, and I flirted with the idea of putting them in the playoffs. It's the same thing for teams, maybe not 6, but number 5 as well. That's the Rangers, and I want to put them in the playoffs. We haven't seen very much from Shesterkin yet, but all signs point to good things for him. And then they also have Georgiev, who will need to bounce back a little bit. Defensively, they're still a little bit young when it comes to some of their key personnel there, so I'm curious to see if that's consistently improving from where they were last season as well. Again, they have tons of firepower, but getting back to kind of defense and goaltending, I still need to see more there until I'm fully sold on the Rangers challenging for a playoff spot. And the real thing is that I do think the Rangers have a better roster than the next team that I'll pick, which is Buffalo, but I got to shake things up and make it a little bit interesting, guys. So I'm going to pick the Sabres at number 6. Let's just say that Taylor Hall helps Jack Eichel emerge as almost a Hart Trophy caliber forward there. So I like what they did there. They brought in Eric Stahl as well, so that's pretty nice for the second line. Overall depth for the team, whether it's forwards or defense, I think is still a little on the weaker side of things. Ullmark played pretty well last year. Not so sold if he's going to continue that this year. And Hutton, maybe not the best 1B goaltender either. So that's why I've got Buffalo still outside of the playoff picture. At number 5, just missing the playoffs. And guys, I'm going to get some flack for this one as well. And I didn't want to put them there. I got the Boston Bruins. So the Bruins, they're going to be without Pasternak for a little while. Although in my Rocket Richard video, I mistakenly said he would challenge for the challenge for the trophy. He still could though. He's that electric of a goal scorer and playmaker. But Boston, they lost Chara, so they lost some leadership there. Although Bergeron's going to fill in perfectly fine, I think. And they also lost Torrey Krug on the back end as well. So some key missing pieces at the start of the season. And with just how hyper competitive this division is, I just had to get a little creative and put the Bruins outside the playoff picture, because this next team, I can't give up on them. And that's the Pittsburgh Penguins. Crosby, Malkin, do not count these guys out. Look what they were able to do despite their injuries last season. They, I think, finished 3rd in the division. They were statistically actually a pretty good team. So I'm not going to count this team out. They're going to have Gensel back. He's scored 40 goals before. The back end is still pretty solid. Dumoulin, Marino, Pettersson, Letang. I think that's a pretty good top 4 there. And then in net, you have Tristan Jarry, who had a fantastic year I think, last season. And Casey DeSmith is somebody who we didn't see last year, but 2 years ago, I was definitely singing his praises. So I think that they can actually be pretty serviceable when it comes to defense and goaltending as well. Don't count out Crosby, guys. I see the Penguins finishing 4th. Number 3, and this is where I cannot back down. When you have Barry Trotz as your head coach, I don't care who is on your roster. The Islanders are going to find their way back in the playoffs until they prove me wrong. So, yeah, don't count out Barry Trotz. Of course, you got Barzal returning to the team. You got Brock Nelson. You've got Anders Lee. You've got players in the top 6 who can put the puck in the net. Jordan Eberle. Sorokin, we got to see how he turns out. But nonetheless, this team has had good goaltending no matter who comes in there, whether that's Varlamov, Greiss, Leonard. They've done well in net with Trotz at the helm, so I don't expect anything different when it comes to the 2 netminders for the Isle. Number 2, the Washington Capitals. And kind of like Barry Trotz, if Peter Laviolette is your head coach, I am not going to count you out. So best offseason acquisition for them there. Of course, they also brought in Zdeno Chara for even more leadership. And I think they're ready to kind of shake off those playoff cobwebs from the past couple of seasons with Todd Reirden. They're going to get back on track. Ovi's going to he's not going to slow down by any stretch of the imagination there. You got Kuznetsov, you've got Vrana, of course, and of course you got Nicholas Backstrom. So, look, the personnel there is still very good back end as well with a Norris caliber, John Carlson, Dmitry Orlov, that kept Brendan Dillon. So I like what I'm seeing from the Capitals. I still think that they are pretty much a lock for the postseason. And then at number 1, and this is funny because I almost wanted to put them a lot lower, but I looked at their roster again and I said, there is no way the Philadelphia Flyers are going to have a down year. I know that they've been hot and cold the last, 8 seasons maybe, but look at this roster with the likes of Couturier, Konechny, Van Riemsdyk, and I think that even having players healthy like Nolan Patrick and even Gostisbehere, even having them being in the lineup and rebounding, I think that's just a little bit extra. It's a little icing on the cake for a team that I think is otherwise very good defensive depth overall. They added Eric Gustafsson, who can provide some scoring from the back end in case that's not what Provorov is providing so much this year. And then you got Carter Hart back there. He could challenge for the Vezina. So Philly, for me, is numero uno. All right, and lastly, the Central Division. So at number 8, and this is partially due to some of the injuries that they're facing, I've got the Blackhawks. So Kirby Dach is out. Jonathan Taves is out for the time being. In net, you have Malcolm Subban and I think Colin Delia. So kind of unproven when it comes to the netminders there. Of course, Kane is still going to rip it up. I think that Dylan Strome might develop pretty well playing alongside him if that's the case. And you got to look at the next season for Kubalik, see if he continues his upward trajectory there. And you got Adam Boqvist to look forward to. So some silver linings for the Blackhawks, but those injuries and their losses, I don't see them challenging. At number 7, I've got the Detroit Red Wings, and they made a lot of changes in the offseason. And to me, even if they are actually a respectable club at the end of things, I would think it would take a while for them to gel. Nonetheless, I really like having Thomas Greiss to complement Jonathan Bernier there, so I think that was a bit of an upgrade in net. He's had a good couple of past seasons, and they've added some other veterans to complement guys like Bertuzzi, Larkin, and Zadina as well. So I think that you're going to see some of those players come into their own a little bit better when paired with these veterans. So Detroit, I think that the future could be looking bright for them, just not this year. So positions number 3 through 6 are pretty interchangeable in my opinion. So at number 6, I've got the Nashville Predators. They made a couple of nice offseason moves, especially with Eric Howla being brought in as a second or maybe even third line center or winger. So I do like the acquisition there, but nonetheless, I don't know if we're going to get the Matt Duchene or the Mikael Grenlund that we're supposed to be getting from out of them when they're in Nashville. So that's why that's a big question mark for me, because otherwise the depth scoring, they lost Craig Smith. I'm not sure if this team has that mojo to compete when it comes to putting the puck in the net there. Dante Fabro, looking forward to his development there. The back end still looks pretty solid. I expect a bounce back from Rene, and overall I still expect this team to compete for a playoff spot. Number 5, and I hate counting these guys out. I really don't like it. I know that they're probably going to find a way to prove me wrong, but it's the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Fighting Tortorellas lost a couple of key pieces from the back end. I know that they still have Jones and Werenski, but they lost Nudavara, they lost Ryan Murray, so that doesn't look so good for me. Scoring, they don't have a lot of top-end firepower, especially with this Pierre-Luc Dubois saga. I don't know what to expect from that. Kind of like what I said about Arizona. I think that potentially that could be a bit of a distraction for this club. Merzlikins had a fantastic year last year, and of course Korpisalo played very well, especially in the playoffs. So I think that that's their best chance if they want to get back into a playoff spot, kind of like I mentioned with the Coyotes. And again, I had to make things a little bit interesting because this team still has found a way to disappoint me the past couple of years, but damn it, they are going to be a legitimate playoff contender this year. Even though they lost Hoffman and Dodonov, and that's the Florida Panthers, the Florida Panthers, adding some good defensive depth. You got Anton Strowman, Marcus Nudavara, Radko Gudas. That's good there. Chris Drieger played fantastic, backing up Sergei Bobrovsky. So if Bob isn't able to rebound this season, let's just say he returns a bit to form. But I think Drieger could come in and do well for them too. Joel Quenneville's got to get this team to the playoffs. There's just too much talent with Barkov and Huberdeau there. They added Duclair. I think we're going to see a bit of a turnaround for Florida, a little bit more of a consistent team all around, not just, scoring 14 goals a game. So Florida's at number 4. Number 3, the defending Western Conference champions, the Dallas Stars. And I know that they've lost Tyler Seguin and Ben Bishop. Nonetheless, you've got a fantastic goaltender in Anton Khudobin, especially in those playoffs there. Defensively, excellent. Klingberg, Heiskanen, can't wait to watch that kid some more this year. And you've got the hopeful emergence of Gurianov, Kiviranta, and Roope Hintz as well. So if those guys can just kind of up their game a little bit, just make a little bit of progress from where they were last season, I expect good things from the Stars. Again, defense and goaltending, when it's that solid, I don't see why this team isn't back in the playoffs. Number 2, I got the Cup champions, the Tampa Bay Lightning, this team right here. So, of course, they've lost Nikita Kucherov, and I know that they've lost some other depth pieces, but overall, top to bottom, this is still maybe the best roster in the NHL. Nonetheless, I think that there might be a little bit of a hangover, not a huge effect on them, but they're going to be up there contending for the division title. Of course, Victor Hedman, Braden Point, Steven Stamkos, Mikhail Sergachev. Don't count this guy out. He's going to have a monster year as well. Really like the development I saw from him. And I really just like the overall change this team has made, getting a lot more physical to complement their skill players. So Tampa is number 2. Sorry, I keep bumping my desk here. And at number 1, the Carolina Hurricanes. So Rod the Bod and company are going to get it done in the Central Division. Goaltending, I know, is not a shining point for this team, but Reimer played really well last year, actually. I think that Mrazek, if he's used as a 1B, he can be very good. And they've got Nedeljkovic. I'm kind of thinking that he's going to get a little bit of time as well. But you look at this team, forward group, excellent, anchored by Aho. You got Svechnikov, of course, Teravainen. Even guys like Warren Fogle, I think, add a lot more than is sort of revealed to the media. And then you've also got guys like Martin Necas. Watch out for that guy. I think he had over 40 points last year, and he didn't even play the full season. Watch out for that guy. Could be playing on the third line. And of course, defensively, top to bottom, maybe the best in the NHL, anchored by my guy, Jacob Slavin, Dougie Hamilton, Brett Pesce. Just great personnel top to bottom there. So that's why I've got Carolina at number 1 in the Central. All right. So before I get into my playoff predictions, I just wanted to give out a few awards. Now, I made a whole video series about this that you can watch, so make sure to check those videos out if you haven't already. So here we go. I've got my Hart Trophy winner, so I made a video on this, and it's going to Nathan MacKinnon. I think he leads the league in scoring, and so I'm going to say he wins the Art Ross as well. Tears it up with a bunch of weaker teams in the West Division there. So MacKinnon is my Hart Trophy winner. Finalists, I got Panarin, and I've got McDavid as well. Art Ross, MacKinnon, my finalists there are also McDavid, and I'm going to say Jack Eichel. I think this guy has a brilliant Hart caliber season. Jack Eichel and the Sabres are going to definitely turn some heads in that respect there. The Norris Trophy. Now, it's never gone to a player in his first season with a team. Do note that, or at least not in the last 30 plus years. So, rather than pick Pietrangelo, I'm going to say Shea Theodore playing alongside him wins the Norris there. My finalists, Victor Hedman, why wouldn't he be there? And I know that you could say the same thing about Roman Josi, but let's also kind of apply a similar principle from Theodore when it comes to this other defenseman. He'll be playing with I believe, with TJ Brody on the Maple Leafs, and that's Morgan Riley. So I'm going to put him as a finalist. He gets some kudos there. The Rocket Richard, and again, I made a video on this, and there's no reason why Ovechkin shouldn't win it, or at least contend, but to make things interesting, I went with Sebastian Aho. I really like his trajectory there. McKinnon's also going to find his name in this conversation, and I even put David Pastrnak. So why don't you just swap out Pasta for Ovechkin, or even Matthews? For the Vezina, I'm going with Dobby. The past couple of years, he's been unbelievable, even in his mid-30s. The guy is just putting up ridiculous numbers. He's playing behind maybe the league's best defense, or if not one of them. Finalists, I still think Tuukka Rask. Just look at the numbers. This guy has been absurd over the past 6 or 7 years. He's been fantastic. There hasn't been any better goaltender numbers-wise, so I'm going to put him there. And Darcy Kemper. Again, man, I wish he got in the Vezina conversation a little more so last season. He's capable of backstopping this team to the playoffs, so I want to give him some respect there. And then the Jack Adams, I'm giving that to Claude Julien of the Montreal Canadiens. I certainly praised the roster earlier on. My finalists are Jared Bednar of the Avalanche and also Rod the Bod Brind'Amour with the Hurricanes. So I didn't make one for the Calder. I don't really follow rookies so much. And the Selke, come on, let's be honest, it's a joke. It just goes to somebody who was left out of the Hart conversation. So maybe it could go to Mark Stone. That would be cool. Or Barkov, or maybe somebody who actually is the best defensive forward in the NHL, like Casey Cizikas or Boone Jenner. Anyway, now we're going to get into my playoff matchups. So here's the thing, guys. The actual matchups, the one, this team versus this team, round 1, round 2, I would just take that with a huge grain of salt right here. Let's focus on the final 4, right? So the champion out of each division when it comes to the postseason. Nonetheless, starting in the North Division here. So I've got the Toronto Maple Leafs over the Winnipeg Jets in the first round. I've got the Montreal Canadiens over the Edmonton Oilers in the first round as well. So that would mean the division championship would come down to Montreal and Toronto. And I have Montreal here. This is where Carey Price goes God mode, and that depth scoring really shows up for them as well. In the West, Sharks fans, you might want to earmuffs, all right? I got Vegas over the Sharks, and that's probably going to be 4 or 5 games right there. I don't want to beat around the bush or BS any of this. I did not mean to set this up either. I honestly didn't mean to set up some of these matchups. That's just how things played out based on how I was projecting the standings. So Vegas over San Jose, and then I've got Colorado over St. Louis. Man, I wanted to put St. Louis over Colorado, but there's just too much skill for the Avalanche. So Colorado moves on, which sets up Colorado versus Vegas. And here's where I say Philip Grubauer stands on his head, and the Avalanche prevail. The top line outpowers the top line for Vegas. So I got Colorado, the Western champion. Now moving on to the East. So we've got the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Again, I did not intend to do this, but I've got Pittsburgh. Here comes the revenge tour for Crosby and Malkin and company. I think they get this done. And then in the other matchup, we've got Washington and the Islanders. And here's another shot at revenge for the Capitals. They exercised the demons from the past couple of years, and they beat Trotz and the Islanders. How about that? So that sets up Pittsburgh versus Washington, and kind of like St. Louis and Colorado. I was so tempted to pick the Penguins here, but to me, man, the Washington Capitals, if Ilya Samsonov plays the same way he did last season, he can cancel out Jari. And I just think of this firepower for the Capitals. I think of their physicality. I think that they will represent the East in the Final Four. And then in the Central Division, we've got the Carolina Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers. I think the Hurricanes get this done. Florida, 25 years of no playoff series wins and counting. And then in the other matchup, it is actually the Stars and the Lightning. So the Stanley Cup matchup most recently, and I've got the Tampa Bay Lightning moving on. I think that there's just too much firepower and physicality that can even overpower Dallas. So I'll take the Bolts there. But in the matchup between them and the Hurricanes, I've got the Hurricanes moving on. So there you go. There's that forward group. There's that defensive depth that could match Tampa's, if not exceed it. Someone's going to have to stand on their head in net, but nonetheless, I like what I'm seeing from Carolina. So that sets up my Final Four. Now, the way that things go for the rest of the playoffs, those 4 teams get reseeded and then play each other. So here's the thing. When I reseed my teams based on who I think will have the most points, I've got Colorado as the top point getter out of these 4 teams. So it's Colorado number 1. I've got Carolina at number 2. I've got Washington at 3 and Montreal at number 4. So that sets up the Montreal Canadiens against the Colorado Avalanche, the Patrick Waugh Cup, if you will. And in this one, guys, once again, Carey Price, God mode. Just like the Predators did in 2017. I think Montreal's kind of a similar team in that respect. Nick Suzuki, the depth scoring, Tyler Toffoli comes into the fold. Yoel Armia, a player that we should be talking about more. The Canadiens outlast the Colorado Avalanche and move on to the Stanley Cup Finals. A lot of people are going to be pissed when they hear this. A lot of people are going to be happy too. I'm taking the Habs, baby. Canada is going to have a representative in the Stanley Cup Finals this year. And the Carolina Hurricanes against the Washington Capitals. The Caps got revenge on the Islanders. They beat the Penguins, but they come up short again against the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes are finally realizing their potential as a cohesive unit out there. They go to the Stanley Cup Finals. So now, my friends, the Stanley Cup champion. Do a drum roll. Here we go. So we got Hurricanes and we got Canadiens. Who's it going to be, my friends? My Stanley Cup champion for 2021. Get ready to storm surge, Caniacs. The Hurricanes, led by Rod the Bod, Sebastian Aho, and Conn Smythe winner Jacob Slavin, will beat the Montreal Canadiens in 5 games convincingly. And they will win their second franchise Stanley Cup. So you heard it from me first, maybe. Nonetheless, guys, this is totally subjective. I know I'm being crazy with a lot of these predictions. I want to know your craziest of predictions down in the comments below. Give me your division winners. Give me your Hart Trophy champion. Give me, all your awards, Stanley Cup winner, all that good stuff down below. And stick around, man. We're going to be covering the season throughout the 56-game schedule right here through the playoffs and beyond, Twisters. So hope to see you around for more content. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Remember, see the video description down below for a link to a video that shows you how you can win one of my jerseys. And I'll see you around for more content. Catch you later, folks.